Tom, I'd love to talk to you about free agency. We know that it's just around the corner and there are big moves to be made. How unique can this offseason be for the New York Jets with all the different changes that were implemented in the offseason?
Well, I think it's going to be unique for everybody in the NFL, particularly when we're talking about free agency, just in terms of some of the different challenges the teams have this year. Right now, they don't have a salary cap figure. There's, in all likelihood, going to be a rash of cuts that have really already begun and are going to continue over the next couple of weeks, just based upon the cap number and the anticipation that it's going to go down. That's going to lead to some flooded markets. There's going to be some guys available who normally would not be. And for a team like the New York Jets that has capital in the draft, they have cap space, they have a lot of maneuverability. Joe Douglas has been preparing, of course, for this moment. Certainly, you would think if there are various things that they want to accomplish, they're going to have the resources to do so. Now, how exactly they proceed from quarterback on down, I'm sure Joe Douglas has a pretty good idea at this point. He's not going to share that plan in its entirety. But again, there's a lot of different things they need to accomplish. You're rebooting on offense, defense, new schemes, new culture. That's going to lead to a lot of new players. And certainly it's going to be an exciting couple of months there in New York.
General Manager Joe Douglas said this offseason that it was a priority for him and this team to re-sign Marcus May, the safety back there, who really held that defense together this past season. How much does that deal make sense for both sides?
Well, it's really about whether or not Marcus May in this particular environment believes that he's going to have a better offer in free agency than whatever the Jets are putting in front of him in terms of a multi-year. And if he does, then the Jets have to make a decision on whether or not they're going to franchise tag him. I mean, that's kind of the decisions you have to make on a lot of young players, particularly in these types of spots. The franchise tag is tricky this year just because when the cap is shrinking, for the franchise tag, you're carrying a one-year lump sum. You can't spread that out. It's not like a signing bonus. You can prorate it over 5 years. You got to carry that entire cap hit right now. So they'll have to make that decision. And if he were to get to market, he would be one of the top safeties available.
And Tom, with multiple changes in the coaches this season, like you said, head coach Robert Saleh bringing in an entirely different staff, there's going to be a new system on both sides of the ball. How do you think that is going to impact free agency as it's quickly approaching?
Well, it's definitely going to impact the type of players that they look for. Just go back 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was, when Kyle Shanahan went to San Francisco. Mike LaFleur, of course, a longtime assistant of Kyle Shanahan. They really turned things over a couple of off seasons there. They brought in a versatile fullback because that system uses a fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, who they paid him off the charts money at that position. You've got some of those, those different types of toys that you use in that offense because you bring in smaller receivers at times, whether it's a Taylor Gabriel or somebody like that. I would expect Mike LaFleur is going to be looking for some different types of parts. There's a specific skill set you look for in zone running backs in terms of being a one-cut, downhill, north and south type of a player. But we've seen the 49ers have success with like 5 different running backs of different shapes and sizes through the years. I mean, I would expect you're going to add a bunch of running backs. I do think that's fair to say. You're going to add a bunch of receivers. I mean, that group, the skill group for the Jets is going to look vastly different through the course of this offseason. And, of course, you're always looking for more edge rush presence. That's certainly another area that I would expect the Jets will be looking at heavily. I mean, they're looking for a lot through the course of this offseason, and the good news is they got a lot of resources to go get it.
Tom, is there anything that this Jets team and Joe Douglas absolutely needs to get done prior to the NFL draft coming up in April?
Well, I mean, there's another good receiver group from everything that I've been told. I think that there's some positions where the Jets actually are set up well, including along the defensive line. This is not regarded as a really strong defensive line group, but if you're going to bolster it, you're probably going to do that through free agency just because in terms of true defensive linemen, D tackles in particular, this is not regarded as a really strong group. I mean, the Jets seem to be in decent shape at tight end. That's another position that's a little bit weaker in the draft. It may not be day one. It may not be during the free agent negotiating window, but as you get deeper into that week of March 15th and then into that following weekend, as some of that money dries up, the Jets are going to be better positioned than a lot of teams to be able to go out, to be aggressive. This is a team that certainly could use an influx, not just of really young players, but veterans as well.
How has the league received this Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh relationship and partnership that we've seen unfold over the past couple of months?
I think the league will get a lot better idea what the relationship really is through free agency and the draft. I mean, we could talk about the personal relationships, and Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, both well regarded as guys, as people. They're going to get along. They're going to have a good partnership. But really, the rubber meets the road when you get into actually making personnel moves, which they haven't had to do yet. They put together the coaching staff. I think that the coaching staff on paper looks like a strong one. Again, a well-regarded, really sharp young assistant, Mike LaFleur, to run the offensive side. A guy like John Benton on the offensive line. You get, Marquand Manuel as a DB's coach. That's a really valuable type of an addition, a guy who's been a defensive coordinator in the past. Now, what happens is they bring in players. I think that's something that is always a little bit unpredictable when you have new regimes. Even though Joe Douglas has been there for a couple of years now, you're still talking about a new coaching staff with the GM. How do they approach things? What do they value? Teams don't really have a book on them, which can be advantageous, frankly, in your first time through, not just in free agency, but also in the draft, because, as people are trying to peg, who are they going after? What are they going to do in this position? You don't necessarily have that track record, and so it'll be fascinating to see exactly how this all plays out.